being here and apologies for being late. The Commission is known not to be tardy, and you're media people, so we apologize for the few minutes delay. Let me take this opportunity to introduce you to Commissioner Sheena Johnson, who is the chair of the Broadcasting Commission's Monitoring and Compliance Subcommittee, Ms. Tisha Mattison, who is the acting assistant executive director. I am Cordell Green, the executive director. To my right is the chairman of the commission, Professor Hopton Dunn. And we will proceed as follows. Professor Dunn will make a statement on the commission's behalf, after which we will take questions. Chairman.
Morning, everybody. I just wanted to make sure that our colleagues are ready, because I see quite a bit of movement, and I'm prepared to wait a few minutes if necessary, okay? So settle your connections, and then I'll start in a minute or two. Thank you very much.
We're doing that now. And it would be accurate anyway because you're seeing today.
Right. We'll be fine. You tell me when.
Again.
I just want to make sure that
Yes. Go ahead now.
Okay. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the statement which is to be presented by me on behalf of the Commission. Cable television operators in Jamaica are required to comply with local and international copyright laws and regulations, particularly those relating to channel and program authorization, particularly the channels and programs that they're selling to subscribers. For years, many of these cable companies, large and small, have been operating in violation of this requirement, despite many measures that have been taken by the Broadcasting Commission to secure compliance. Several operators were found by the Commission to be in breach of their licenses, and some operators have been ordered in the past to remove certain unauthorized channels. The Commission has also in the past ordered the blocking of unauthorized programs and channels that infringe the copyright regulations. We have also made recommendations to government for the introduction of financial sanctions in respect of copyright breaches. Despite these efforts, and notwithstanding representations by certain international rights holders spanning many years, the problem of non-compliance has persisted. In Jamaica, as in many countries, program authorization for use is often a matter of commercial transactions and business negotiations among the international rights holders and the local content providers. In some cases, these negotiations have been protracted, dragged out, with some cable operators finding the authorization costs to be prohibitive. There are also some channels whose US-based owners refuse to offer distribution rights in the Caribbean, either because the cable market in the region is considered too insignificant, or because the channel owners have no rights clearance beyond United States domestic borders. This is despite the fact that there are many of these channels that are in demand in Jamaica and in the wider Caribbean. However, in the absence of settled business arrangements, the distribution of such unlicensed channels by the cable operating companies has been elevated to a contentious international trade issue, threatening the reputation of Jamaica. Against this background, additional enforcement measures are required for the orderly and phased elimination of unlicensed cable channel operations in Jamaica. Over the past 6 months, we have been in intensive meetings and discussions with all the stakeholders, the local cable operators, their trade group, JACO, international channel owners, the Office of the United States Trade Representative, the USTR, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, among other government departments, and so on. Our focus has been on obtaining legitimate content for distribution in Jamaica. That is, our focus has been on ensuring that our cable operators obtain legitimate content for distribution in Jamaica, and on arriving at a strategy for the orderly and phased elimination of unlicensed cable channels operating in Jamaica. One outcome of these consultations is a decision by the Commission to issue a directive to cable operators licensed in Jamaica, requiring the removal of 19 cable channels from transmission in subscriber television packages with effect from May 31 this year. This represents the first phase of a process of compliance enforcement for this copyright regime. I'd like to say that these channels that are involved in this first phase include 9 from the Encore suite of channels, 5 from the Showtime group of channels, 4 from the Stars group of channels, as well as a channel known as Movie Channel Extra. To present to you the detailed list of channels, I'd just like now to call on the Commissioner in charge of Compliance and Monitoring, Commissioner Sheena Johnson-Brown, to read the list of the channels that are to be removed.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. The following channels are to be discontinued and removed from service delivery by subscriber television providers on or before Sunday, May 31st. Encore Black, Encore Family, Encore Love, Encore Suspense, Encore WAM, Encore Classic, Encore Drama, Encore Mystery, Encore Movieplex. The Movie Channel Extra, Showtime East, Showtime West, Showtime TOO, Showtime Showcase, Showtime 2, Stars Comedy, Stars West, Stars Kids and Family, and Stars Multiplex. Thank you.
So, resuming, cable operators have been directed to remove these channels and to provide their subscribers with notice of discontinuation and an explanation for the reasons for doing so. Cable operators must also make whatever arrangements become necessary based on the terms of contracts with subscribers, including refunds and channel substitution where applicable and appropriate. Cable companies have also been directed with immediate effect to cease the promotion of any unlicensed channel to members of the public and to recall that these will constitute false advertising and would be a violation of the directive that was today issued to them by the Broadcasting Commission. The Commission is aware that these copyright compliance actions will affect the viewing habits of Jamaicans who have become accustomed to viewing many of these channels. We regret the inconvenience and ask for public understanding of these necessary regulatory changes in order to bring Jamaica into compliance with our international commitments and in order that subscribers are being sold cable channels which are legal channels in Jamaica. The Broadcasting Commission has and will continue to enforce the rules governing broadcasting and in particular the requirements for compliance with the Copyright Act. The public is being assured that we will remain vigilant in relation to the fair and balanced implementation of these compliance requirements, and that we will maintain the ongoing dialogue that we have been having with all the stakeholders in order to ensure that there are settled arrangements and, where possible, the crafting of new approaches for a more durable arrangement in relation to the cable sector. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions? And we have a microphone to move around.
Good morning. Just some follow-ups on what you said.
Could you say your name?
Anastasia Cunningham, the Gleaner. The time frame, you mentioned in the first phase for the first removal, the 19. Is there a time frame for the second phase and how many channels would be removed during that period? As well as a cost factor. Of course, persons are going to be saying, no, with all of these channels going, cable bills will obviously be dropped. You mentioned the refund issue, but will they be directed to have lower rates for cable for subscribers know that they're not getting what they were paying for in the beginning?
Okay, so a big cluster of questions, right? The first one was relating to the
second phase of
right. Right. Well, we have not determined the second phase because we are going to be evaluating the first phase and continuing the dialogue with the cable operators. Note that we are not doing this without consultation with the players in the industry. And so we will do further consultations with them, and we have not yet determined when that second phase would begin or exactly which ones. And indeed, there may be a third phase. We are not even saying that it's only going to be 2 phases. So that's the scenario. We will keep it under monitoring, and we will continue to discuss it with the cable operators.
Did you come with a number of all the breaches of channels? You mentioned 19 in the first phase, but in all what you've seen, have you determined if it's 100, 250 channels that were in breach? Is there a number?
Yeah. It is in the neighborhood of 98 channels.
98?
Yes. It is in the neighborhood of 98 channels, so that you can see that it is a matter that requires some action. And as I've said, we will now need to take those actions in relation to the sector.
And the cost factor?
You mean in relation to refunds and so on?
Yes.
Well, those are matters between the cable operating companies and their subscribers. They have contracts, and those contracts will have to be honored. So the subscribers and the cable operators will need to engage in a dialogue. We will monitor in the background, but these are arrangements that are governed by the contracts.
But customers can expect lower rates. I mean, it's only fair.
Well,
Your estimation.
Well, it will be for the cable operators to discuss that with their subscribers. We have said in the statement, though, that among the things that could arise will be matters related to refunds and channel substitution.
I think it's important to underscore that the cable sector in Jamaica, like many parts of the world, pricing, it's unregulated. The Broadcasting Commission does not enter upon that reference at all. We don't set the prices for cable services. We have nothing to do with packaging or how channels are packaged. We have nothing to do with how people arrange their packages. Our focus is on the copyright compliance aspect.
So therefore, that we go to the Fair Trading Commission, where that is.
Well, there are lots of places that people can go to. I mean, there is a Consumer Affairs Commission, there's a Fair Trading Commission, there are NGOs. I think the first port of call would be the cable operators themselves. Yes, please.
Kalila Enriquez, Nationwide News. Have the cable operators responded to the directive yet? Have they indicated that they will comply? And if they don't comply by the deadline, is there any penalty? Because as you noted in your presentation, this back and forth has been going on for years.
Yes. We have been in intensive consultations with them up to very recently. They are aware of the requirements that have been made of them. We are not yet in a position to make any assessment of their compliance with the directive because the directive was only issued today. But as you know, the Broadcasting Commission expects compliance with directives that are issued, and we do so in relation to this case. We believe that they will comply.
And what happens with
Well, there are sanctions. I won't want to go into the details of what those sanctions are, but you can be assured that, as with any other Broadcasting Commission directive, regulation, or the laws of Jamaica, when they are violated, we will implement the sanctions that are provided for in law.
And the cable sector, the cable operators accept the situation. They appreciate that this is not a Broadcasting Commission perspective, and they themselves have been very engaged on it. In fact, the Association of Cable Operators over the past, I think, 6 months established themselves a working group looking at this matter and how they can also assist on their side in resolving the situation.
Yeah, but in the final analysis, we can't speak for them. We can only evaluate, as the ED has done, the responses we have got. But it's for them to make their own judgments.
How many cable operators are there?
48. 48.
And all of them are in breach?
Well, as we have said, this is widespread. I don't want to be going down the wicket to say every last one of them, but the practice of non-compliance is widespread, and it is not confined to large or small ones. It is right across the spectrum of operators.
Of the 98 that we're in breach of, is it possible, do you know, that we can get license for some of them, or is it that we can never get license for them in the Caribbean market?
Good question. I believe that many of the channels that are deemed now to be unlicensed and unauthorized, they do have the possibility for them to come back into compliance. And this action by the Commission may provide an incentive for them to expedite the negotiations to come back into compliance. So it's not as if we are saying that these channels are to be permanently and forever discontinued on Jamaican cable networks. It's just that unless and until they are legally authorized, they will not be allowed transmission.
Yeah, as occurred with HBO, I think we can point to that. There was a time when there was a problem with HBO. The Broadcasting Commission became very active in that endeavor, and you would have seen that those channels have become available. And we also know that over the past, since 2014, we have had additional channels being cleared for the region, and quite a few under negotiation now for clearance.
You need a mic?
Donald Oliver, CVM. Just wanted to know the government's response to it, and the reason why I'm asking that is because GCT is on a number of these cable bills. So what has government's response? What's the government's response to all of this? Or have you spoken with representatives from the government?
Well, you will need to restate the question.
Based on the fact that GCT is on a number of cable bills, has there been a response from the government to you guys in regards to what's going on?
We are always in contact with the government in relation to matters of this nature. As we have said, we have been in touch with many different departments of government in relation to this matter. The payment of GCT is a matter between the licensee company operating and the Ministry of Finance and the financial authorities of Jamaica. And so we expect that all of that will come into conformity as necessary in relation to this matter. We don't see the need to get into detailed discussions around that matter, because I believe that it will be understood by the operating companies that those adjustments will have to be made.
Based on the fact that there have been complaints from overseas in regards to these channels, was that the thing that pushed your hand to have this conference and clear the air right now?
I'm very glad that you asked that question, because the fact is that I myself as chairman and the executive director and staff at the commission have been engaged in discussions with U.S. authorities over many years. And in fact, earlier this year, I had a meeting with representatives of the U.S. Trade Representative's Office in this room about this matter. It is a matter of ongoing dialogue. It isn't triggered by any recent U.S. enforcement or negotiation matter. It is a matter that is ongoing, and we would have had this news conference anyway, because it is a natural outcome of a series of discussions we have been having in relation to this matter.
And finally from me, the local stations in particular have been lambasted, especially when they acquire certain shows from overseas. What is going to be from now on, from your standpoint, the public education system for Jamaicans to know exactly what is going on?
Yes. Well, I can advise you that in relation to the copyright compliance matter and in relation to rights holding issues to do with programs, the Broadcasting Commission has just this week launched a public education campaign. Some of it is already on TV, giving the public advice and update in relation to what is happening in this sector in this period of transition. So that is definitely the case. We will be continuing our public education. We have also asked the cable operating companies to do their own levels of public education, whether in the zonal communities that they serve or in relation to the national environment, respectively, in order to bring their customers up to date as well. So there's likely to be a multifaceted public education campaign. Okay. We might be able to screen you a few seconds of the public education campaign before we leave here today, just to give you a sense as to what we are doing and to give you an idea that this has been a matter that is ongoing for some time earlier, because obviously we couldn't have produced the kind of public education flow that we have already placed on the air this week if we were just starting from events to do with a week or two ago.
In the past, the Broadcast Commission responds, well, in regards to the whole local stations carrying overseas shows, that was a matter of gray area, so to speak. Is it now in black and white for you as to how to proceed from now on?
You mean in respect of
in respect to local stations acquiring overseas programs and it being blocked out?
All right. I'm going to ask the ED to say something about this as well. But let me just say that it is fairly clear, not just in Jamaica, but internationally, that when a rights holder, meaning the owner of the content or the person responsible for marketing the content, allocates that right to a local operator of whatever kind, that the other operators block the channel out. It is a standard international practice. And so that is what is constantly at play when you see blockages and so on. Right? What the Commission will do is that we are going to generate some guidelines just to do with this matter of getting these rights holders to inform their publics about what is about to happen so that we do not have these kinds of public upheavals around a particular blockage, partly because the public information flow has not proceeded in the way that it has. Right? But it's a matter of some importance, and I will ask the Executive Director to say a word about that.
Well, the only thing I would add, Chairman, even on this question of notice, if you read some of the contracts cable operators enter into with foreign channel providers, there are provisions such as we can discontinue a program without notice to the local cable operator. Just an illustration. People can complete rights agreements 24 hours before something is aired. So there is accepted in principle, and it's as a matter of common sense and business sense. You want to provide as much information as possible to viewers. I mean, nobody wants to acquire rights and then have angry viewers, or that really shouldn't be, that's not the desirable outcome. But it's really a matter of contractual engagements. Right. People purchase content, and there are variations to those purchases. Some of those purchases will say you have the exclusive rights to carry the program simpliciter on all platforms. Others will say you have the exclusive rights to the terrestrial platform or to the cable platform. What we are very clear about is this. When local television stations invest in programming, their investment cannot be devalued by illegal activities. No unlicensed channel in Jamaica can ever trump or should be allowed to trump legitimate arrangements entered into by local television stations.
Right. Okay. Khalida?
You spoke about revamping the local cable landscape and coming up with a new modus operandi. What do you envisage that will look like once this process is complete? Are we looking in the long run at more expensive cable bills because these operators now have to negotiate these deals with the networks?
Yeah. Some of your conclusions are logical conclusions, but it's not for me to say in relation to whether now that cable operators will be required to pay for the content that they are making available to subscribers, whether the subscribers will now be asked to pay more for what they are actually acquiring. That is a matter between the cable operating company and the subscriber. But we have an interest in facilitating a better pace of discussion between the international rights holders and the local content providers. Because as you heard reference in my statement to, there is this matter of some channels that are not being made available for licensing. There are some channels that the rights holders are not interested in licensing in a small market like Jamaica. There are other matters to do with a tendency, not just a tendency, the practice of batching the Caribbean with Latin America and making available to Jamaica, which is an English-speaking country, Spanish language feed as what it is that we should be packaging and negotiating as part of these arrangements. What we want to do is to play whatever role we can in facilitating the discussions to enable legal rights to be acquired for the content that is being transmitted in Jamaica, by making sure that many of these troubling matters, legitimately problematic matters, are brought to the table, not only to the table here in Jamaica, but anywhere in the world that we can engage in discussions about making sure that we play a part in getting legal content on the airwaves. So I hope you get the sense of what I'm saying. I'm saying that we need to partner to ensure that these issues are straightened out early.
Do you think that this revamped cable landscape will end up driving consumers away from cable and further towards the internet, which is getting cheaper to use at home on mobile devices and so on, and where a lot of this content is available for free?
Okay. Well, one of the things you would have heard me try to avoid in the discussion here so far is speculation. But it is beyond speculation that there are alternative content providers in the landscape that are internet platform driven, that do factor into what is the future of this landscape. Right? Not all of them are legal or legitimate either, but they factor into the landscape. So the discussions that we will need to be engaged in and the thinking that we all need to be a part of will need to take account of what the future will look like. And I think the international rights holders for cable television should also take that on board, that there are competing providers that may look to interest audiences in these circumstances.
May I just add that the landscape, based on current reform proposals to government, will be a more expansive electronic media sector. The over-the-top providers, internet service providers that Sherman alluded to just now, and also satellite television, and for that matter, satellite radio, do not fall neatly within the current definition of broadcasting. And there is now work being done in earnest to amend the legislation to have a more modern definition of broadcasting. So the landscape will have more regulated services. It would include some services that are now not regulated. So you'll expect to see more competition, and our market will not be unlike others in the world.
Yes.
I just want to add something to what the chairman...
Just before you do, on the point that you just made, I want to also make it clear that we need the legislative reforms and changes that we have recommended to government to be placed in the Parliament and through the processes of approval as soon as possible. These things complicate our ability to manage a rapidly changing environment when the modifications that are required aren't forthcoming as quickly. So I want to make a call for the urgent implementation of the legal changes, the legislative changes that will enable us to better deal with the rapid changes that are taking place in this sector.
Yes, I only wanted to add on the question of the new arrangements, Kalila, to support the point being made by the chairman. And I think we really should expressly also say that we are calling on the owners of the in-demand channels, many of which originate in the United States of America, to wake up and see that we need a new model. The geographic demarcations, apart from what the chairman has said about our natural socio-cultural similarity with the United States of America, quite apart from that, we believe that it is unhelpful for these rights holders to be negotiating and not including Jamaica, the wider English-speaking Caribbean as a matter of deduction, but in particular Jamaica, as a natural part of the clearances that they're seeking for North America, because we are right in their satellite footprint. And to do otherwise, in fact, undermines the work we're doing at the Broadcasting Commission to enforce copyright compliance. So it does need to be addressed on both sides. Our side in what we're doing now, but we are also insisting that people understand that we need entirely new models.
Okay.
Just wanted you to clarify, obviously these are illegal activities that's taken place between the cable operators and whoever they're getting the links from. What are the repercussions for them? Because it's not just about, okay, we're moving on now. Will there be repercussions for them based on what they've been doing all these years?
Well, you know, as I said, I'm not here to speculate and to speak for other people. But I can say that we are at a time in the cable industry where transition and reform is inescapable. It cannot be business as usual. Things are not going to be what they were because there are international regimes and local legal requirements that must be conformed with. And those who are either unable or unwilling to conform with those local and international regimes will have to deal with whatever the consequences that arise. So basically I am indicating that the sector will inevitably change in light not only of this but of many other developments that are taking place on the landscape, of which the Commission is quite aware and is playing an active role in monitoring and helping to manage in the Jamaican landscape.
And I think we should underscore, Chairman, as you have said, beyond the cable sector. In fact, we are now in the process of completing our biennial comprehensive copyright audit across platforms. That's cable, free-to-air television, and free-to-air radio, just to make it clear that the copyright initiatives and the copyright engagement is not a singular one. It's not just a cable platform. We happen to be dealing with cable today, but there is always a lot of engagement across industry. And when that audit, in fact, is completed, some of that will be factored into our determination of that second phase the Chairman spoke about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yes, sure.
What is to prevent us from, when this firestorm dies down, to go back to square one in a year time? What is to prevent it? What is going to be put in place to prevent the fact of Jamaica from going back to this point again?
Well, as you heard the Executive Director say, we are closely monitoring through audits the status of the landscape, and we will be taking the necessary action to ensure compliance now. What we are here also engaged in is the protection of the reputation of Jamaica. And we, the Commission, we have a responsibility to ensure that we are not seen internationally as a kind of rogue nation that just takes anything as and when it is available, not only transmits it but sells it, and then expect to get away with it and to keep an industry going in that way. That's not going to be the way forward in the future. And please bear in mind also that copyright compliance is not just about compliance with international rights holders. There are Jamaican content producers whose rights must also be respected, whether those rights are being addressed within our domestic borders or internationally. And so the same expectation that international rights holders have in relation to our need to respect their copyright compliance is the same expectation that our local content providers, including the music, film, and a whole range of other things, those local content providers have a legitimate expectation that their rights will be respected when their products are being made available overseas. The question of piracy works in any direction, and we have to make sure that there is protection against that wherever it arises. And certainly where it falls within the remit of the Commission, we will be ensuring that we don't return to that period where anything goes.
On that point, it is also very important to underscore in relation to what the chairman said about rights holders. Rights holders have options independently of the Commission. In some other domain, you might have heard about litigation. Some of what we are embarked on here is to avert expensive litigation. That's also an option that's available to rights holders. So copyright enforcement is not just about what the regulator does within the parameters of the legislation, the Broadcasting and Radio Rediffusion Act. People can sue to protect their interests, and people have indicated that they are prepared to do so. And I think it's in our best interest to avoid those expensive resolutions. Litigation is something that we all should collaborate to avoid, because very often we are talking about stakeholders with much, much deeper pockets than small cable operators.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes, I see one at the very back. You need a microphone, sir.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Just wanted to elaborate on the copyright audit that is being conducted. Just give us an idea of where it is, when can we expect a report, and if, what are the findings thus far?
Well, it's across the board, and what it entails, as occurred 2 years ago when we did it, we engaged with international rights holders, first of all, to get the latest status report on contractual arrangements, because these matters don't always involve the Commission. And then it requires all the licensees, radio, television, and cable, to provide to the regulator evidence of arrangements to carry legitimate content. And then we sanitize that information. That's where the hard work comes in. Correlate. We have to disaggregate what are contractual disputes as distinct from flagrant copyright breaches. When that is done at the level of the Secretariat, we prepare a comprehensive report. That report goes to the Commission, and then the Commission has options which include recommendations for suspension and or revocation of licenses. We are far advanced in the process. I think it would be fair to say, Tisha, that most of the licensees have provided copyright information, and we are in the process now of doing our analysis.
Okay.
I would say by the end of the second quarter, that whole process ought to be at a fairly mature stage. It's very involved.
You're talking about March?
No, the end of the second quarter. The first quarter would be April to June. The second quarter is June, July, August.
August,
yes.
Okay. All right. So that gives you a little time horizon. But it's a work in progress, and it's something that happens on an ongoing basis, periodically.
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, and it's really important to inform the Commission on this status. And the licensees are required to provide us with the necessary information to enable us to do it. Yes, please.
If this is being done on a continuous basis, why are we in the situation that we're in terms of persons not being compliant?
All right. Let me address that, because it's an important question. You heard in my statement reference to the fact that really and truly business transactions must be allowed to take place in the normal course of these things, right? We don't want to march in simply because we have an audit that tells us certain things and engage with a negotiation process that has been taking place. Some of these negotiations have taken a long time. Some of them result in clearances. Others of them continue under discussion. So that's in part the answer. We are working with business transactions between rights holders and content providers in the cable sector. And sometimes that can take a long time. What the audits do is to provide us with a very clear picture as to where negotiations are taking place, where clear violations exist, and where we need to take action. And in the past, as you have heard me say, there have been instances where we have recommended the non-renewal of licenses for cable companies that have been found to be in consistent flagrant violation of their copyright compliance requirements. There are others that have been served with notices of intention to suspend them, and so on. So there's a lot going on, and that has been going on in relation to this matter of the compliance. Okay? Any other questions? Yes.
With this new directive, are you getting any resistance from the directive that you've issued now?
As we've said, it's for them to say and do, but up to now we have not seen any resistance.
I think it's fair to say they have been cooperative.
Yes, they've been cooperative. But, you know, I'm a little cautious because...
About the future.
Yes. You know, but the ED is right. They have been cooperative, and we don't expect any non-compliance. But, you know...
They won't be happy, that's for sure.
That's the point.
The subscribers won't be happy.
That's the point.
But
that's the point. So we have to be a little cautious in predicting what cable operators will do. But up to now, we have not seen any signs of any unwillingness to cooperate. In fact, I can tell you this, that an action by the Commission is sometimes welcomed because it provides a level playing field for everybody, right? Big and small. And so everybody gets an opportunity to see that the same rules apply to everybody, right? In the absence of that, it is individual cable companies doing their individual thing. What we have done today through the directive is made sure that the rules apply to everybody in relation to the channels that are being discontinued today. Okay.
Any other questions?
Anastasia, did you have your third final question? Yes, yes. Yes, I believe those are available to members of the press. Your fourth final. Any other question?
Any other final question? Would you like to see what the public education... Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm Dave Lindsay from Carolyn. Currently, this is a channel I'm watching in HD on my phone, right? And there are other hosts.
Don't block the TV.
There are hosts of channels on it, like 286. And these are the standard channels you find on your cable, right? I'm just saying, is this going to be something that the Broadcasting Commission will pursue as being illegitimate, or will it be left to do its
Before the
course?
chairman answers, I'm going to put on a lawyer's hat and caution you before you answer the question, because part of the answer that you will get will be predicated on whether what you're watching there you're paying for, whether it is legal. I do know that the police at the very highest levels at this moment are involved along with the Commission in dealing with some illegal providers over the internet, and that's a criminal law matter. Let's have no doubt about that. And there'll be some action. I don't want to look at your thing, but just in case, you shouldn't be televised. The police might take an interest. But on a serious note, you're talking about over the top content.
Right. But I want to come in on this question because Mr. Green is speaking as a lawyer and is giving you an appropriate level of caution. Right? I can speak as a media practitioner and say that you have freedom of expression. You have freedom of expression to ask an appropriate question in a news conference.
Yes. I join you in that, absolutely.
So you see, I was just pointing out the different perspectives from which we come to the same problem.
But the way these people, I've done my research,
yes.
And the way this platform is set up, it's actually propagated from the signals from the boxes that the cable companies abroad issue to their clients.
Yes, some actually come even out of the United Kingdom.
Right.
Yeah.
And what they do is they hack into the boxes and they get the MPEG-2 transport streams and they provide it on a free platform, so to speak. So it's available to all without any hacks or
yes.
without you having to do anything illegal, so to speak.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
basically you logging onto the internet
yeah.
and doing due diligence to watch it.
Yes, but permissions are often required. We are entering into the world of subscription everything, right? Subscription everything.
And to expand on what Cordell said, he said that they need to consider us when they're doing their negotiations and stuff. Well, I think this is one of the mediums that is going to make them naturally think about us, because if we can't get it, then we're going to obviously look at
You have hit the
means.
nail on the head, and that's what we have been telling them, that they are unwittingly encouraging, by these access impediments, some forms of piracy, because there's going to be a limit to which we can control some of that. Incidentally, Tisha Mattison, the Assistant Executive Director, just reminded me that under no circumstances, in fact, some of the channels that you have mentioned, they haven't been cleared for the region, so that they are being obtained illegally there. But that's an unregulated platform at the moment.
Right, and it's being done outside of Jamaica. The server is not sitting here locally, so there's nothing we can do to per se block it, unless we would impede on the rights of the internet users, which would be to scan what they're watching and to block certain things.
Which is why we're saying, and you would have heard us say, we need to revisit the existing models. You would have seen it happen in the recording industry. There is a need for us to look at some of the existing arrangement. It is counterintuitive for cable operators in Jamaica and for cable subscribers in Jamaica to have a difficulty in accessing some of these channels. We would wish if the only issue we were here dealing with would just be a matter of, well, people aren't paying for the access, as distinct from the subscribers are demanding the content and it can't be accessed legally. So we are working at removing some of those barriers, even as we have to enforce our treaty obligations and local statutes.
Okay. Well, I know that
Understood.
some of you have deadlines, and we have been responsive to a whole range of questions. So I suppose it's a good time, Edie, to show just the.
They want to.
Would you like to see the
Public education.
just a sample of the public education content that we are now rolling out as a commission? I don't think that this would take you very long, because it is this one.
Just leave it.
Oh.
Yeah, bring it up.
But for purposes of this formal part of the press conference, let me thank you all very much for your participation and for your questions. And the Commission will remain available for continued dialogue in relation to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you,
Please
Chairman.
stay to watch there.
Yes. Well, Kalila, it's a little bit more than that because.
Yes, I
yes. Oh, yes, you have. Right.
Yes.
We just want to let you know that what we're trying to do is to use a technique that is called whiteboard animation, and this whiteboard animation advertising is a technique where a hand or pen typically guides ink around the board, creating text and images. The real idea here is to establish a relationship with the public, and this whiteboard approach has the capability of breaking down relatively complex subject matters. That's why we're using it. And copyright is a very complex subject matter. So we're going to be approaching this in layers because copyright is so complex, you can't answer all the questions at once. So the first issue we're dealing with is how programs get onto local television sets. But we're then going to have to answer some other questions, such as those you have been raising, Anastasia. What's going to happen when channels are blocked? Why are channels removed? That kind of thing, which people constantly ask about.
It's Q&A with BCJ, your partner for a new day.
How does my favorite show from abroad get onto my TV set in Jamaica?
It all starts with the program owner, the person who owns the rights to the show. The program owner can sell their program to a U.S. channel for viewing in the USA only. The program owner can sell the show to a U.S. channel, and the owner of that channel then makes it available to your local cable operator. The program owner can also sell the rights to a local TV station, which is why sometimes you will see a show only on local TV but not on cable. Program owners can restrict a program from being shown in a particular region or country, or approve it for either cable or local TV. From program owner to U.S. channel owner, then to cable operator. Or from program owner directly to your local TV station. That's how your favorite show gets to you.
That was Q&A with BCJ, your partner for a new day.
All right. Okay. And there'll be many more of these, and these will be played multiple times on many platforms. Yes, please.
If you can use this? Of course. Yes, certainly. Yes. As long as you credit us.
Our branding is all over. Our branding is all over it. Our branding is all over it. So
no, I don't know which part you might cut. Cut out.
Yes,
Thank you, folks.
But what do you think about it? You like it? Good. I like to hear that. And that's what BCJ likes to do. We have some very ingenious advertising support, a representative of which is actually in the room. But we are very, very happy with what we have seen, and the public, from the pre-tests, are very responsive to these kinds of things. So thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good day.